Hey everyone, this is Rod of the Nation 80s Comic Podcast. I am here for episode 32, and Michael isn't here with me this week. He is at a secret location, and this week he is visiting the Global Seed Vault out in Norway. He wants to go make sure that the Earth population and their seeds stay good, so he's out there making sure everything's good for you and me out there. So this week we're going to kind of change the format a little bit since Mike isn't around. And instead of talking about our Marvel books, I'm just going to go through a couple headlines this week. So this podcast might just be only an hour. We'll see how things go, how much I've been drinking, and things like that. But I don't have many cutscenes like I normally would this time around. But a few things that I did want to hit this week. And before I get into anything else, I want to say rest in peace to artist Tom Lyle. If you don't know who Tom Lyle is, unfortunately he passed away at the age of 66 earlier this week. But he was the co-creator of the Scarlet Spider, which, if you're not familiar, that was the Ben Reilly Spider-Man. He was kind of draped. He kind of looked like Spider-Man in all other sense, other than he kind of had like a blue hoodie with the spider symbol sitting right there in the middle. So unfortunately, he has gone to that great artist or creator in the sky. And so if you want to help, there is a GoFundMe, and I will add it to this stream later on if you would like to donate and give a little money to help take care of the amount of debt. I think me and Michael talked about it previously that unless you work for the big two and like are currently employed with the big two, the chances of some folks having medical insurance, unless their significant other does, is very slim to none. So every little bit helps. There's also the Heroes Initiative out there. So if you don't necessarily feel comfortable giving out something to the GoFundMe, I'm sure someone is going to put something together under the Heroes Initiative to help out those folks. All right, as we proceed forward, let's talk about the Joker. This was one graphic that I made because I already had one from last week. So let me go ahead and do this little. From Todd Phillips himself. He recently provided some clarity regarding the matter, making it clear there's still no plans for a sequel to Joker. Speaking to IndieWire, he stated, "I can honestly say to you, there has been no meetings that have ever happened on October 7th when I marched in. If you know me and my career, that's not my style." He then recounted his long-standing relationship with Warner Brothers and discussed his tendency to refrain from continuously producing film after film, even after successes such as the Hangover trilogy. "I don't suddenly become a comedy factory producer like, oh, let's just churn out movies." And I kind of understand what he's saying, but like he just mentioned the Hangover, which had a trilogy because that first one did quite well. I don't know about you, but we could have probably went without the second and the third Hangover. The first one was pretty well done. That the way that I look at the Hangover is the same way I look at Taken. You know, the first ones were great, but then you could see the quality to start. You know, it's just a cash grab come the second and the third one. I'm not mad at it, but I wouldn't be surprised if now that means we're going to get a Joker sequel. But the first one was great, so if somehow, some way they can make the second one just as compelling, I'm all for it. So, you know, good luck to that. So, let's go to some other headlines here, and let's talk about Alan Moore. And Alan Moore, if you don't know who Alan Moore is, number one, you need to do your homework, because Alan Moore has been in this game for a minute. He's wrote some phenomenal stories that we all kind of know out there. If you don't know of those stories, anything. Sorry, I just realized that there probably wasn't any sound in that graphic previously, but what I was saying was, if you're not familiar with Alan Moore, some of his work, he's well known for Swamp Thing, The Watchmen, I believe League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, V for Vendetta, just to name a few. And so Alan Moore has retired from comics a while back and just took on to just writing books. And so apparently something that's recently resurfaced from an interview back in 2017, where he went on to say that, that he's basically, to an extent, just kind of embarrassed about this superhero culture. And then so, Moore has been pretty outspoken at previous times and things like that. So I don't know why people are surprised that Alan Moore would say something like this. So basically where this all stems from is there was an interview posted on Alan Moore World, a site dedicated to the man and his works, although the interview was first published in January 2017. And it was for his historical fantasy epic Jerusalem. And so he was talking to a Brazilian website. And so a few things that he said was that Moore states that the current impact superheroes have on contemporary culture is both tremendously embarrassing and not a little worrying. He also goes on to mention mass market superhero movies seem to be abetting an audience who do not wish to relinquish their grip on A, their reality reassuring childhoods, or B, the relatively reassurances 20th century. The continuing popularity of these movies to me suggests some kind of deliberate self-imposing state of emotional arrest combined with numbing condition of cultural stasis that can be witnessed in comics, movies, popular music, and indeed right across the cultural spectrum. All right, so let's stop there for a second. Yes, that's very true, but let's kind of unpack that a little bit. Most people do want to get outside of reality because of their day-to-day life. It could be you as a parent, it could be just that you work extra hours. It could be anything that you do in reality, and sometimes you want to get away from. We see this all the time in sports. A lot of people go to sports, as far as the NFL, the NBA, MLB, NHL, or even soccer for that matter. And the reason that they do is so that they can escape reality at that moment in time and be immersed into something else. So as he goes in here saying that, they're relatively reassuring childhoods and they don't want to relinquish their grip. Yes, I would like to keep some of the inner child in me, even though I need to be an adult on a day-to-day basis. But it's only look, there is those who want to permanently stay there, and we always hear about the failure to launch. You probably remember my man who had to get kicked out of his parents' house at the age of 30 just because he didn't want to leave. But I mean, other regular normal adults, we want to leave, but we also want to have some way to escape reality at times. And it doesn't require liquor, drugs, or anything else. So sometimes a form of entertainment, music, like he also mentioned here, comics, movies, of course you want to do that. I mean, why else would you have these great pieces of work? Even books. Like, for example, a lot of people that I know, they get immersed in a book so much, and it's to help them escape reality. They love to read fiction, or they love to read nonfiction. Of course, there's some learning aspect to it, but they also want to just escape the moment and just be immersed in this particular environment they're in for a couple hours, a couple minutes if you're on the train or in transportation, things like that. So while I understand what he's saying, that doesn't make any sense. But let's go further to what Alan Moore says. These books and these iconic characters are still very much white supremacist dreams of the master race. In fact, I think that a good argument can be made for D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation as the first American superhero movie and the point of origin for all these capes and masks. All right, let's read that one more time. These books and these iconic characters are still very much white supremacist dreams of the master race. In fact, I think that a good argument can be made for D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation as the first American superhero movie and the point of origin for all these capes and masks. So, once again, I slightly understand what he's saying, but there has been that time is improving, so we hope, right? And it's those little intricacies, like you have the Black Panther movie that came out. Every time that they bring out something like what's the most recent one that comes to mind? But we kind of saw it with Ghost in the Shell, and then The Last Airbender was what I was thinking of too. Even Dragon Ball, for that matter, the live action movie. Every time that we see Hollywood deface some of these movies, and now that Hollywood is starting to see this outcry of, hey, look, we're not going to take you just going ahead and throwing some popular actor or actress into a movie and then assume that we're just going to eat it up, or that you're going to just manipulate a script so much that we won't realize what we're getting from that film. You know, people do want diversity, and we're starting to see that more and more. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want a representation of yourself on the big screen, small screen, audio. It doesn't matter. You want to see some sort of representation of yourself. So while I understand, and this was written back in 2017, that time is progressing. I don't really expect Alan Moore, unless he's still actively on the internet looking at all the changes of Marvel, DC, Image, and all these other companies, and then still be able to say that. I mean, let's be clear. I don't see him just get on the internet going, I wonder what Marvel's doing today. I don't know what DC's doing today. He might be talking about his time in comic books. You might be just seeing the overall picture of these movies and then coming to a particular thought. But like I said, these thoughts are once again in 2017. We don't even know if these thoughts make any sense to him in 2019. As of right now, I don't have an article on that. I do see, though, that his daughter gave a heartfelt explanation of his issues with superheroes, and so let's see what she had to say here, if I can find it. Her father recently made an earnest plea to people to vote for next month's British general election, but Moore believed that her father's message was derailed a bit by the discussion that has popped up in recent days about superheroes. And then, of course, she wrote a beautiful tribute about him. Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth here. But one of the things is that Alan Moore's daughter was mentioned about is that there's an election going on in the UK, and they want people to get into it. And that's kind of getting lost due to this whole controversy. And then so right now I'm just going off of @Leah Moore on her Twitter, and these are some of the comments that she had to say. He has also clearly never watched he has also clearly never watched any of the rather enjoyable comic-based movies or experienced any of the joy, support, or inspiration they bring to millions of people. He hasn't sat next to a 10-year-old watching Captain Marvel or Wonder Woman for the first time. The ideal that the man who loves superhero stories so much, he gave up his job and plunged recklessly into writing comics, which at the time was insane for him to do. Loved them so much, he filled every panel or every balloon and caption with that love. Loves them so much, he tried to make them to something that provoked thought and feelings and addressed issues that spoke to the people the way superheroes have always spoken to him. So that kind of goes back to my other point. Look, I know people want to say, let's cancel him, or let's cancel Martin Scorsese, or whoever else it may be, but you have to understand here that just because so many people love comic book movies and superhero movies, or just the culture itself, I mean, I love my wife, but she's not into this. She loves The Walking Dead, but you're not going to get her to just be going to every comic convention just because there's a comic book convention, or then that's going to convince her to read the compendium or things like that. For some people, it just doesn't work that way. For others, it is a gateway into the whole rest of the medium. It just depends on the person here. So once again, I see where Alan Moore is going, but if he hasn't even, consumed the movies and stuff like that, I'm not really. I can only take his opinion with a grain of salt. And then once again, as much as I respect the workings of Alan Moore, there's very little that I have read from Alan Moore, so it doesn't really impact. His feelings doesn't impact what I'm going to read, what I'm going to watch or listen to. It's just not. But I respect his opinion. I understand. And because it was the news of the week, hey, we had to make sure we went through it. All right, let's talk about a few other things here. I didn't know this, but let's talk about Stargirl. And Stargirl is going to be appearing in the whole Elseworld crossover that's going to be taking place on the WB. So that, of course, with Ollie as the Arrow, the Flash, and all these other folks. Well, it seems like Stargirl is also going to debut in that crossover before then she heads her way over to DC Universe. Which, cool. I didn't know those universes were kind of like connecting, so it's kind of interesting to see that. I wonder, could that mean that we're going to see like a quick sneak peek of like the Titans into the Elseworld universe and stuff like that? And once again, this kind of makes everything super confusing all over again, like we talked about previously with HBO Max, DC Universe, and you just have the CW channel. I don't know if Stargirl is going to be bouncing around as far as like it's going to be on the DC Universe, and then it's also going to be there. But from what I see here, it's slated to be coming out in the second quarter of 2020, and it's going to be out on only the DC Universe app. So good luck to that show. I'm feeling that once again, eventually HBO Max is going to be making its way. Since we're talking about DC Universe, let's also talk about the fact that I'm going to, there was a lot said last week in regards to Titans and to the Young Justice TV series. So I'm going to take that time to go back now and not only like, when I say now, not like right at this moment, but I'm going to start looking at that series again and see what's going on, because just because I haven't watched it as much as I should doesn't mean that it isn't still pretty good out there. So looking forward to get into that and checking it out. I started this week and then I kind of got hung up a little bit due to a couple things, but looking forward to eventually checking that out. Also eventually getting into Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing. So and then getting to like Disney Plus, other than The Mandalorian, what are you watching? I really would love to know. If you get opportunities, send a comment to Facebook or anywhere else. But I'm just kind of curious, what are you watching now if you're only watching The Mandalorian? Is there enough nostalgic stuff to keep you sitting there while you wait for the Marvel shows to come up? And then, other than the Marvel shows, what else are we getting? So, what seems exciting at the moment right now is starting to feel like, well, maybe I'm not realizing how much stuff the Disney Plus app actually has. And then, hey, I mean, they're being smart about it, because then they kind of got you in hook to get Hulu, they got you in hook to get ESPN Plus. So now that you kind of have that all combined together, you kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna just run with this. But is there enough content to hold you over? No, and look, let's be clear. It's cool, it's nostalgic, you're going to watch it, but after you're finished watching some of that nostalgic content, are you going to stay? Or are you more of an original content guy that like, hey, I need something else to hold me over? I love Gargoyles, I love the X-Men, I love all the stuff that they have. I even watched a couple episodes of Simpsons, but I don't watch it all the time because I would love to see something new every so often. So, I only kind of bounce back and forth, but I'm not going to binge watch 6 episodes, or like I think it's like 5 seasons of Doug, a couple seasons of Gargoyles. I just don't have time as an adult. But just curious, wanted to see what people thought about that. Or maybe we'll talk about it more when Mike comes back from his journeys next week. All right, let's also talk about Chadwick Boseman. And so there's a bit of buzz here about Chadwick Boseman, because he said he doesn't really want to do anything with the Marvel Disney Plus series. And so there's a bit of a snippet where he was being interviewed for the 21 Bridges movie that just, I believe it came out this weekend. And it's probably in a big old fight between that and Frozen. Well, Frozen probably destroyed the Frozen 2. And now you have 21 Bridges and other ones fighting for second. But he did come up with this little statement. He says, I wouldn't because I don't want to do I don't want to do a TV show, he said, adding that he has other things he's excited about doing, and none of those are franchises. And so a few other things he said is, in discussing the Black Panther 2, Boseman noted he's interested in exploring and selling and finding out new things about his particular section of the MCU, as long as the foundation that was established in the first film is honored. And so, I mean, I've heard this before from a lot of other actors. You know, let's be clear, like a TV show, the way a TV show is filmed, that means that you're basically filming this show almost for a full year. Whereas if you do a movie, depending on the timeline for that movie to be filmed, it could take between a month to like maybe 3 months. Maybe, you know, at times it could take up to 6 months, barring the situation or what the film requires. But I don't know if you ever heard this. A lot of people have always kind of wondered how come, for example, someone like Eddie Murphy has never done a TV show, or even just kind of went on the road for a stand-up special. And it's because he's always kind of blatantly said, you do a movie, you get a one-time payment, and you're done. So, like, for example, whether you like the movie or not, Eddie Murphy's still going to get his 10 mil, maybe 5, whatever the budget of that movie is, and then he's done. Compared to a TV show, you waiting. I know it sounds crazy, but let's say, for example, you have the Friends TV show. At one point, I believe they were getting paid $10 million an episode, right? I think each cast member was paid $10 million an episode. Maybe it was 5. Let's say 5 for the moment, because I think 10 is a little bit unreasonable when you're talking about 20 episodes at the time for a season of Friends, right? So that would be literally $200 million a season, but that was towards the tail end, right? But regardless, they don't get that 200. Let's just say, you know, just to make the math easier, since I mentioned it before, let's say they're getting 10 million an episode, and then they have 20 episodes to shoot. They don't get 200 million at the beginning and then do all this stuff. They get it throughout the course of the television series, right? So for some who do TV shows, that's appealing, but for those who go from movies and they go into TV, it's kind of unappealing, you know. And that's only one thing. That's only the financial aspect. But then you're just your schedule is so much less yours being on a television set than it is being on the movie set. Now, I am by far a novice at this, but these are just things I've always heard in discussions of how come some of your favorite actors and actresses, even when they're on the decline, don't go towards television. And most of the time it's because, hey, let's be clear, Adam Sandler, every time he puts out a movie, whether you like it or not, he's getting his 10 off the top. So why would he do a 12, 15 episode season and then have to have that 10, 15 million stretched out amongst the year? Just saying. But I'm not too heartbroken that Chadwick Boseman said he doesn't want to do anything with Disney Plus. There's more than enough other shows on there. And then quite frankly, I want to see what else that, you know, I want Disney Plus to show me what they got otherwise Marvel related that's not even really connected to the MCU. So I don't know if you've seen like these little bits and pieces of What If that's been rolling around, the animated series, kind of saying, what if this happened? What if that happened? They look pretty cool. Super excited to see that come around. So, and that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the MCU. You just kind of get a what if. So like, what if Namor defeated Black Panther and took over Wakanda? And we get to see what that looks like in a 30-minute episode, maybe a 2-parter. You know, or we get to see what if Steve Rogers became Iron Man and not Captain America, or what if Tony Stark became Captain America. So there's so many different variations of what if that this is going to be super exciting to see that. And I love the fact, I'm hoping that, hey, let's get this all out of the MCU and just try it that way. I'm curious to see how that works out. So really looking forward towards that. Okay, going back here to some other headlines. We're going to talk about Deadpool real quick, only because TJ Miller opened up and he was on the Adam Carolla show, and he's basically saying that he's under contract for Deadpool 3, and then he's also mentioned that he doesn't necessarily want to be a part of it. And his way of saying that is, well, this is what his statement was. To be honest, I almost rather they didn't, talking about Disney bringing him back. I think Deadpool 2, we knocked it out the park. I really think it ended up being great, and I was worried about that. So if Deadpool 3 is and I guess he's trying to say is that after Deadpool 2 finished, I'm assuming he's saying there's no more else to show. Oh, there's so much more, and I kind of strongly disagree with him. Now, I don't know if he's going to get the same type of role. He's been dealing with a couple legal issues and things like that. But I mean, there's more than enough story to tell. We just found out who Cable is, and then so I don't know if Cable's going to tie into Deadpool 3. Are we going to get an X-Force movie? We still haven't even gotten a clear plan for Disney what they're going to do with their rated R line of Marvel films. So we don't know if it's going to fall under a Fox umbrella, or I don't even know if it's going to be called Fox anymore, but whatever it's going to be called, it's going to fall under a new studio. We just got to kind of play that wait and see approach. And TJ Miller really isn't the make or break of that movie. Like, I think Ryan Reynolds does a lot, and I think as long as he has a decent supporting cast, I don't know if we're going to even really miss TJ Miller that much. But I digress. I know there's people out there who loved him. I initially loved him in Silicon Valley until I heard how much of a jerk he was on set. But, I must admit that guy does bring a certain oomph sometimes to movies. But if any of those rumors about the other stuff is true, then yeah, just stay away. It doesn't really matter. All right. So, I don't know what it is about Zack Snyder. And when I say that, it's got more along the lines to do about the fact of I never realized how much appeal, or I guess how much of a legion of fans he has out there, that now what I kind of thought was just kind of like a little small bubble of people talk about release the Snyder Cut when it comes to the Justice League movie, it's now just growing into this weird monster of where now, I won't even call it a monster, but it's just that now the calls for releasing the Snyder Cut is a whole lot larger than ever before, because now the whole cast of the previous Justice League movie have all kind of posted messages on social media talking about release the Snyder Cut. I think I don't know if Jason Momoa was the only one who didn't say anything. I'm not sure, but it might be. But no, I guess he did say something, because now I'm looking at the article now. But we don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people are thinking that now that we have HBO Max, maybe we might get the Zack Snyder Cut on HBO Max. But this has been growing for a while. It's been going on for a couple years. Now, I'll be clear. I don't know if Zack Snyder's direction compared to what Joss Whedon did for the Justice League movie is going to change so drastically that we're going to get a whole totally different movie. I don't know where this all bubbles from. Is it just the fact that they just feel like he should just finish the circle? I haven't really kept too aware about what's going on with this, but it just seems that like even any detractor that goes, like, look, the movie's still going to be garbage, are just kind of getting like roasted or just trolled online, and they're just saying like, hey, bring out this movie, let's check it out, and all these other things. So there's reports of, and from what I found online, it seems that president from DC has already said that, the executive from DC has already kind of said that, hey, look, we do have this Snyder Cut, but it's not ready by any shape of the imagination. So, like, for example, from what it seems, that even though there might be a Snyder Cut of a movie, it might not be ready for prime time and being put out there. What does that mean? Does it mean we'll ever see it? I don't know. We'll just have to kind of wait and see the approach. We even don't know what's going to happen anytime soon in terms of the rest of this. Like, will there even be another Justice League movie? Looks like they're going more towards individual movies. We're like 2 weeks away. I want to say about 2 weeks away, maybe 3 weeks away from even the Wonder Woman 84 trailer. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. I mean, like, when it comes out, will I check it out? Of course I'll check it out. But I'm not expecting anything else other than it's just a Zack Snyder version of the Justice League movie. Now, with that being said, we were supposed to get Joe Manganiello, who was going to play Deathstroke. So I'm curious to see how big of that was, but we don't even know if that portion was big at all. And now he's no longer, I don't even know if he's even in the DC universe anymore, if we're going to get anything else out of that. But what can we do here? All right, going on to Batman. And when we go on to Batman here, we're going to talk about the fact that Christian Bale kind of recently said that, let me find my article here. Excuse me. All right. Christian Bale just kind of basically said, why he said no to the fourth Batman movie. Now, I never knew there was a chance for him to play in another Batman movie. But he recently told in an interview with the Toronto Sun that when he was talking about the Nolan trilogy, what ultimately led him to refuse the offer. We knew we had to reinvent it, Bale said, of Nolan's take on Batman. I literally had people laugh at me when I told them that we were doing a new kind of Batman. I think that the reason it worked was, first and foremost, Chris' take on it, but also we never were arrogant to assume that we had an opportunity beyond one film at a time. That's something that Chris always would talk about. Bale continued. He said, this is it. We're making one film. That's all we've got. Then they came and said, you want to make another? It was fantastic. But we still said, this is it. We will not get another opportunity. Then he came and said, okay, you want to make a third? Chris had always said to me that if we were fortunate to be able to make 3, that we would stop. Let's walk away from that. Then they were inevitably came to us and said, how about number 4? I said, no. We have to stick to Chris's dream, which was always to hopefully do a trilogy. Let's not stretch too far and become overindulgent and go for a 4th. That's why Chris stepped away, and after I was informed my services were no longer required, he left. It is what it is. I love Chris Nolan's Batman, and truly enough, I love all 3 of them. I know the third one had its problems, especially when you hear from people, but for some reason it's really near and dear to my heart. So is the second one. I will say Batman Begins is probably the one I least watch, and it's not even because like it was bad or anything. It's I for some reason never catch it on TNT, or I think it's even in my collection. I haven't seen it recently, so who knows? Maybe I'll watch that soon. I should see if it's on DC Universe, but I don't think the Nolan Batmans are on the DC Universe app, which is sad. But I think we're cool with getting a trilogy, because by then the DC Universe had changed so much that it was probably a good idea for Chris Bale to, kind of relinquish the mantle and give it to somebody else. I did enjoy him as a Batman, even though he had the weird influx with his voice and things like that. But it is what it is. Sign of the times. I mean, hey, I didn't think anything of the fact that Michael Keaton couldn't even move his neck in a Batman costume until someone mentioned to me later down, years and years later after life. So, props to anyone who wears that costume. I have no clue how hot that thing is, or like even the Iron Man costume or something like that. So, the fact that you spend all your time in that costume and all that stuff, I can't be really too mad about the fact that you're sitting there doing all this stuff. Also, if you're not aware, Matt Reeves, who did the Planet of the Apes series, which I wasn't aware of until recently, and Andy Serkis is going to be playing Alfred. That Batman movie, will be released June 25th, 2021. It seems like everybody's forgotten that 2020 is right around the corner. And it's only because of the fact that all these dates are pushed back. But like Michael mentioned last week, there's just so much other stuff out there that, who's going to really say too much about it? But, let's talk about, what should we talk about here? Let's take it around and let's just talk about Disney Plus for a little bit. and we'll speak about Disney Plus for a little bit since I kind of gave that little tidbit at the beginning. So, The Mandalorian show, super awesome, phenomenal show, and I haven't fully finished that. I haven't caught up to episode 3, but I intend to soon when I get opportunity. My kids are using the most, are probably maximizing my membership the most because they get to catch up or watch every Disney movie they ever wanted. Oddly enough, though, I will say they're not interested in the old school stuff. So your Bambi's, your Sleeping Beauty, anything like that, they don't care. Big Hero 6, Frozen, Wall-E, Toy Story, you bring any of those up and they're all for it. So there's kind of a bit of a disparity with them, because I mean they're into the newer stuff, and I'm kind of the old head. So when it comes to those films, so is my wife. But the cool thing is that there's, when I look at the series and I get to see a lot of the stuff that I used to watch for when I was younger, Gargoyles, X-Men, the Avengers, the Mightiest Warriors show. They have the old school Fantastic Four cartoons. They even have the old Spider-Man one with Iceman and Firestar. Matter of fact, where is Firestar these days? I haven't seen her in ages. I gotta look her up in comic books and see if she's still around. But I mentioned it before, that nostalgia, while it's great and it's all in one contained location, how much before that kind of wears down a bit while we have these other shows that we're looking for to come through. Disney has always, to me, been one of those things where it's great for children, teens, and of course adults to an extent. But then after a while, you only go there only so often. You don't want to go there every day. And then, because like for example, you want to watch like A Handmaid's Tale, which oddly enough is owned by Disney now, but 60% if you talk about with Hulu and things like that. But what I'm getting at is then you want to get back to the stuff that you enjoy to watch, The Expanse, or whatever show that you watch that might be semi-violent. Kind of why you like Netflix is you have this kid area and then you have this other area for adults, and it's all in one location. I understand what Disney's doing, and Disney's going to win outright for that part because they have all of this catalog and stuff like that. But I see why they kind of said, hey, look, let's get you in for that 3-year deal now, because now you're kind of going, you know what, this is cool. And as the fanfare starts to wear down, you go, man, why do I still have this membership? Maybe I might want to cancel and come back when they got something new on. But you already stuck for the 3 years. I know I'm stuck for the 3 years. Almost how the DC Universe app did when he's like, you want to pay $75 for this first year DC Universe? Well, guess what? Here you go. Now let me introduce you to your comic book section. And yes, we're missing a significant amount of our catalog. Hey, let me introduce you to our media catalog. Guess what? A lot of this stuff is going to be gone within a month. And then now you're like, oh man, I'm not really feeling this. Oh, but I'm stuck for a month. So there you go. So I am reserving judgment at the moment, but these are some of the key things I'm starting to see with Disney Plus that I don't know if without that 3-year deal that they put out there, would a lot of people stay within that first year while they're trying to run through their paces. The Mandalorian, like I said, it's an awesome show. It's a big gamble. It seems to be paying off. But how, after, like say, The Mandalorian ends, how much longer do you sit there and watch Disney Plus? Like I said, I watched some Disney movies, mostly the Pixar stuff. Maybe some other ones in between. If I decide to watch it with my kids. Excuse me. The other stuff, other than the TV series a bit, not really that interesting. Excuse me. A few of the action TV series are interesting, and after that, it's kind of it. I watched Recess today. I was like, man, this is dope. Watched it for an hour. All right, I'm good. It's just how it goes right now. So I'm going to be looking really deep into how they handle this portion further on. So, doesn't look like I'm going to make an hour. Looks like I made 40 minutes. But it is what it is. I got 40 minutes in. Like I said, next week we'll be back to our regular format, where Mike will be back from his travels in Norway, and we'll be talking about Marvel books. The books that I'm going to be talking about will be She-Hulk. I went through the whole series. I'm going to talk about the Black Panther, the 2018 version of the Black Panther comic book. And then I have another one that is escaping me right now. And then for some reason I went back to my old roots to the X-Men and started reading the Executioner song when Cable shoots Professor Xavier in the chest. Yes, shot him in the chest. So I can't wait to talk about that as well. I know Michael has a couple books in store for you as well. So this is episode 32 of the Nation 80s Comic Podcast. Come check us out next week. I need to get a video out for NCBD, New Comic Book Day, and tell you about about the things that are popping up at your LCS, or whether you get Comixology, however you do it, DCB service. And that's it. So see you next time.